Things turned violent in Edo State Labor Party as persons believed to be loyal to the Lamidi Apapa group got physically assaulted ahead of the state convention. Days after being sworn in as the executive governor of Ondo State, Lucky Ayedatiwa visits President Bola Tinubu in Lagos to intimate him on developments in the Sunshine State. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. Tonight is the last edition of the program for the year 2023. And so on behalf of Channels Television and your regular host, Shenwo Kimbaloye, who will soon be back, we want to thank you for always being there with us as we together explore the complex world of politics. We do not take it for granted, and because of your constant company, we concluded this year as a station with the award for Television Station of the Year for the record extending 16th time at the Nigerian Media Merit Awards. Now, it's the grace of God and your love for us. So thank you, and thank you as we look forward to 2024. Now, let's tell you that we've been tracking some stories in the polity. The governor of Ondo State, Lucky Ayedatiwa, says President Bola Tinubu has asked him to take charge and pull everybody together to spur development of the state. Governor Ayedatiwa disclosed this while speaking with journalists after a visit to the president today in Lagos, a day after he was sworn in as governor following the death of former governor Rotimi Akeredolu. Let's take a listen to him.
I'm here to see Mr. President to further brief him on the events that happened in our state, in Ondo State. The loss of our governor, SAN-CON, and to also let him know that I've just been sworn in because there can never be vacuum as the governor of Ondo State, being his former deputy governor. And to also thank him for standing by us during the critical moments in our state. It's no longer news what happened in the last 6 months in Ondo State that was on the news. Ondo State was practically on the news almost every day in the last 6 months, but all that has been put to rest now, and he stood by us as the president of the country. So I'm here to just thank him for being a father figure to the state, for his advices and the development right now, what we are also looking forward to do in the days ahead. He commiserate with me, even though he put a call through yesterday to condole with us in Ondo State through me, and he still did the same today. And they also wish me well, that there can never be vacuum. One era ends and another one begins, but it's within the same administration.
And away from Lagos, we can tell you the gunmen are at it again. They are suspected to be bandits and have attacked communities, leaving 8 people dead in Fikiu, Pampo, and Pampo-Puri communities in Usan local government area of Taraba State. The member representing Usan State constituency at the State House of Assembly, Mr. Joshua Risupik, who confirmed the attack, raised concern over the killings of the members of his constituency. He's asking the federal government to deploy troops to the troubled areas to save affected farming communities. Mr. Joshua had also formally raised an alarm over bandits' attack from the neighboring Republic of Cameroon.
From security report, more than 700 people have been killed in those areas. 700. Those are the ones. This is from security. 700. So something that we've worried. People have left their farms. They are taking shelter in the primary school. Okay, now if school resume, where are the students going to sit and learn? So it's something that we need to double our effort. In fact, but I will urge the federal government and the state government, they should declare state of emergency on security. Declare state of emergency is needed. Because every effort without security, it will be in vain. I pray that they hearken to this, our call. And my fear is we are heading to full scarcity. And once we allow that to persist, in no distant time, Nigeria will run into full scarcity. And that will be a big problem to everybody. Secondly, it's our responsibility to secure the life and property of our people. It is our responsibility. So I'm calling on the security agencies to do more. We appreciate their presence. We appreciate what they're doing. You can see some of my complaints. I say sometimes they get there after the attack. They should be prompt, number one. Number two, I requested that they should carry a special operation in those our mountains and our forests to flush out those bandits or criminals or whatever, whether non-state actors.
That's another voice raising concern over the incident in Taraba State. Senator representing the Southern Zone, Senator David Jim Kuta. Now, in the meantime, the Nigerian Police Force has set up a special operations squad which will commence immediately their work in Plateau State as part of the intervention to address what we've been experiencing as insecurity in that state. Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun disclosed this at the government house in Jos during a condolence visit to the governor of the state, Caleb Muftang. The police boss says as part of security measures to curtail the incident or incessant attacks, a tactical unit will also be deployed to the state. He appealed to the people for cooperation in the fight against criminals, saying that it is a war that needs the contribution of everyone to achieve eventual victory. But just before the IGP's visit, another community came under attack in the same Bokos local government area on Thursday night. It was learned that the marauders attacked the community at night, burning and destroying homes, but fortunately this time no deaths was recorded. In the meantime, the death toll from that Christmas Day attack, we can now tell you, stands at 195. And that's going to be part of our big conversation today, because whilst we're still trying to get over or trying to just roll over the issue of Plateau State and trying to understand what is going on and empathize with the people, there's an attack in Taraba. So it looks like in parts of the country, security is degenerating, and it's going to form part of our conversation. My guests are already here. And we're also going to switch gears at some point to the Edo politics. What's going on there? Today we saw a viral video of an assault, physical assault on some people believed to be loyal to a group of the Labor Party. That will be part of our conversation. So we have, a governorship aspirant as well as party leaders also talk to me later on the show. But for now, let's bring you our political roundup stories.
The governor of Adamawa State, Umaru Fintiri, has signed the 2024 appropriation bill of 225.893 billion naira into law, following its approval by the State House of Assembly. The governor notes that his administration has laid a solid foundation in the last 4 years and will ensure that every local government benefits from the budget. He also promised to implement the budget with transparency and discipline.
And I want to assure you that this relationship we are building for our people will not be taken for granted.
Similarly, Governor Bala Mohammed of Boji State has signed into law the 2024 budget of over 300 billion naira. Governor Mohammed explains that the budget was specially designed to target infrastructure and human capital development in the state. The governor also signed into law 3 other bills, which include the Child Protection Bill, Water Reform Bill, and the amended Orphans and Vulnerable Persons Act.
2 of the laws seek to address the age-long challenge of marginalization of our children that has denied them the access to basic necessities of life.
Also in Osun State, Governor Ademola Adeleke has signed the 2024 State Appropriation Bill into law with a promise to ensure full implementation for the benefit of the state and her people. In a short statement after signing the bill into law, Governor Adeleke said the budget, tagged Budget of Reconstruction and Recovery, is crafted to fast-track the revitalization of the various sectors of the state economy. And from the southeastern Anambra State, members of the All Progressives Congress have been meeting to strategize towards building a more visible and vibrant party ahead of the 2025 governorship election in the state. At a meeting of stakeholders of the party in Awka, the state capital, the party received a former Nigeria ambassador to Burundi, Mr. Elijah Onyagra.
We are trying to engage with our people in Anambra, explaining to them why APC is the only bridge connecting Anambra to the center.
Welcome back, and of course those are your political roundup stories, and I did say two conversations for tonight. First is the insecurity in Plateau and Taraba State, where we recorded another yet some killings by people suspected to be bandits, and then we switch gears later to Edo politics. We're going to joined by the people right in the middle of all of this to bring that conversation to you. Let me introduce my guest who will be joining me to talk about the development in Plateau and Taraba. It's been in the front burner since the Christmas Eve, where people woke up dead, and now the number of those that have been killed from that incident stands at 195, and the country is not at war. That's very disheartening. And while they are still grappling with that, another attack again last night. So what's really going on? My guests may be able to provide answers to them. At some point, we'll be joined by the first PRO. We understand we're expecting him to join us because they were in Jos today. But for now, we have with me in our Lagos studio a legal practitioner and a public affairs analyst, Mr. Inibe Effiong. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us via Zoom is security expert and CEO of Beacon Consult, Mr. Kabiru Adamu. Mr. Kabiru Adamu, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Compliments of the season.
Compliments of the season to you. Dr. Kabiru, you know that when these things happen, you're one of our first port of call. My natural question is, we should be closing the year with some level of excitement. But now, instead of us closing the year with excitement across the country, we're not keeping tabs of death toll of people that by now should have been having hangover at Christmas. They are dead, silent in their grave. That number has risen to 195. Whilst they are still grappling with all that situation, another attack again. So my question to you, sir, what is going on?
In simple terms, it's a situation where non-state actors are challenging the supremacy of the use of force by the state. And sadly, they are doing so successfully. The complaint, the condemnation that appears to be in the media space, we're not seeing that condemnation in other cycles. As an example, I'm not aware that there is any declaration of perhaps an emergency situation in that location. There hasn't been, for instance, I know the president has requested and demanded for action by the security agencies, but the fact that even as at yesterday, there was a report of an attack, that means that presidential directive, unfortunately, has not been carried out. And the saddest part of it is we haven't seen anyone held accountable in spite of the fact that that presidential declaration was not carried out. So in simple terms, it's a situation where these non-state actors have beaten, they have felt the blood, and they are continuing to bite. And sadly, we are not meting out any penalty on them or deterrence that would stop them from continuing what they are doing. It's sad to say that this is the situation across several states in the country. You've mentioned Taraba, but it's happening in Sokoto, it's happening in Katsina, it's happening in Zamfara. In fact, there is no region out of the 6 regions of the country that these non-state actors in one form or the other are not carrying out attacks with almost wanton abandon. And so it worries me, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, that our security arrangement at the moment has not been able to prevent this level of attack. And this other part of it is, we're clear that it hasn't prevented the level of attack. But more importantly, after the attack, we are yet to see a single arrest. And so the fact that it's not preventive, and then the fact that even after the attack, it's not arresting the perpetrators, I'm worried.
Let me come to you, Mr. Effiong, because sometimes we almost sound like a broken record. Every time this happens, we see statements, but it's like I don't know whether we're not seeing as much progress as possible. So my first question to you, what is your impression of what is going on now?
Well, my impression is that, and let me start by expressing my sympathies and condolences with the victims of these horrendous attacks. What has transpired, I think it's a reminder that we're essentially a failing state. I'm careful not to say a failed state, but we're essentially a failing state. If you look at what the law says, we begin with Section 33 of the Constitution, and that is under Chapter 4, which contains the fundamental rights of Nigerians. The first right provided and guaranteed under the Constitution is the right to life, under Section 33. Now, when people are slaughtered, when people are killed in the manner that we have witnessed in Taraba, in Plateau, and several other, many other parts of the country, it is an indication that the right to life of Nigerians have been violated and that the government is incapable of guaranteeing that right. Now, we cannot have this conversation without situating the blame where it truly belongs. When you look at what the Constitution says, beginning with Section 130, it says that there shall be for Nigeria a president who shall be the chief executive officer of the government of the Federation and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That person today is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and he has to take responsibility for what has happened. Now, when you even look at the operational use and command structure of the security architecture of our country, beginning from the police, you look at Section 215 of the Constitution. That power is domiciled in the president. You look at the armed forces, Section 218. The president has the sole authority over the control of the armed forces. You look at the State Security Service, SSS. You look at under the National Security Agencies Act, it is still the president that has the sole authority and control over the SSS that is supposed to provide intelligence for the internal protection of our country. So what I see is basically abdication of presidential responsibility and constitutional functions. And that is how I choose to characterize what has happened. In other words, my verdict as a Nigerian is that today, President Tinubu has, to that extent, abdicated his responsibility to protect Nigerians. Because what does it mean to say that the president has given a presidential directive, a presidential instruction? The IG has given directive. I mean, I was just reading the news while coming here, that the IG has gone to Plateau State. And he said he's, deploying tactical teams, intelligence team, whatever, to Plateau. What does that mean? We are now living in a country, and quite tragically, where the words of the president, the statements of the president and commander-in-chief are clearly and undoubtedly meaningless to Nigerians. Because if the president of a country is saying that this has to stop, and barely hours after he has said that, we see another attack. What the attackers are saying is that in their mind, in their state of mind, they do not recognize the authority of the president. So we have to stop excusing this. Can anybody tell us today that the entire architecture, the entire military infrastructure, the entire state security service headed by Bichi, the entire Nigeria police force headed by IGP Ebetuku is incapable of detecting these attacks, is incapable of responding expeditiously, that the military has no aircraft, the police has no helicopters, they could not have responded within minutes of the attack, when the military has confirmed that they received over 30 distress calls. So there is simply no excuse for what has happened. It is either the government is complicit in these killings, or the government is clearly incompetent. But whichever it is, if it is a case of incompetence, how come that nobody has been held accountable? How come that the IGP is still in office? How come that BG, the SSS Director General, is still in office? How come that the Chief of Army Staff is still in office? This is the tragedy of the Buhari years. That in 8 years, we saw a president that people were killed, no accountability, no punishment. Is Tinubu now towing that same pattern? Because if these attacks take place, over almost 200 Nigerians killed, almost 200, and you do not sack the IG, you do not relieve the service chiefs of their responsibility, you are simply saying you do not care, and the attacks will be repeated. So there has to be some form of accountability. People has to be penalized. And I don't understand what the killing is about.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Kabir. I wanted to, I'm sure you may have some response to what he said in terms of what Nigerians may be looking for is some level of accountability from the people responsible. You will respond to that. Again, the governor was on our program earlier in the week, I think on the very next day after that attack. And sometimes when you listen to governors, sometimes they almost sound helpless. And he was calling on the federal government to what he calls political will. He even gave a hint, some kind of, say, land grabbers. His first question, is it that these governors are that helpless when it comes to protecting their own people because of the structure of the country?
No. A governor, to a large extent, has as much powers in his state as the president has at the federal level. So as an example, he's the chairman of the State Security Council. That council sits regularly. We know that post the incident in Plateau State, that council met, decisions were made. In fact, before the incident, several decisions were made. Now, it's possible that the governor cannot issue directives, operational directives to the various security agencies that are within the state. But the fact that he's the chairman of that council, the fact that reports are submitted to him, the fact that he sits down and chairs such meetings tells me that he's got enormous powers. And I know that looking at some states, and I would mention a few of them, Lagos State has a model that is quite exemplary, and I think other states should also follow from. Lagos State has set up the Security Trust Fund. That fund is effective. It's being run like a private run body, quite transparent. What do we have in states like Plateau? And to add to that, before this governor, in fact, I'm happy that he's a lawyer, so what I'm going to say would be instrumental. Several committees and commissions of inquiry have been set up in Plateau State. I'm not aware that the recommendations of those committees have been implemented. And so the question is, were they waiting for the president to implement those recommendations? I don't think so. It's within the prerogative and the power of the governor to implement the recommendations, except where there are constitutional issues that would need to be addressed. But my point is every politician, and not just in the executive arm of government, at both the federal and state level, has a level of responsibility, and he or she should not shy away from that responsibility. The governor has the right to protect the citizens of his state. Now, how he does that, if he says he doesn't know how to do it, then I'm sorry, why is he occupying that state? We've seen similar positions by other governors. What did they do? They responded. Why are we not seeing the same thing in Plateau State?
I want to ask you one more question before I come back to Ms. Ifeong here. And there are drivers to these incidents, and sometimes people mention and say, oh, they are marauders, they are from outside the country, and all kinds of description given to these people. But from your own intelligence community, what have you learned as to the exact reason why these things are happening? Are these guys really foreigners? How much of foreigners are involved in this? How much of the locals are involved in this? Because if we don't do that analysis properly, we just keep all this blame game at the end of the day and nothing happens, and we don't know who to hold for what.
So let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what do we know beyond the narrative that is being bandied around at the moment? I use the words carefully, non-state armed groups. Now that's a generic word to describe several groups. And at the top of that, armed ethnic militias. Now, these armed ethnic militias are, belonging to different ethnic groups within the state. They are armed. Who is arming them? To an extent, sometimes ethnic groups arm them. Sometimes politicians arm them. One of the reasons for where we are at the moment is an outcome of the February and March elections. Negative mobilization was used quite, strongly along ethnic and religious lines. And at that point, we actually warned that one of the consequences that whoever is victorious in that election would have to live with is the consequences of that negative mobilization. So number one, ethnic militias. Number two, armed marauders that could possibly be associated with the Fulani Hada group. And I use the word consciously, possibly. Only a full-fledged investigation would reveal that. And then thirdly, you've got persons that are of criminal intention who are hired for the purposes of achieving political objectives. Now, the question of settler and indigene in Plateau State has not been settled. It's rearing its head from time to time, especially during political decisions. Now, if you haven't, you would recall that a few weeks ago, actually, there was the ruling of the appeal court, which did not favor a particular political party. Now, post that ruling, we've also seen a semblance of that negative mobilization. Now, how well are all of this playing into the current crisis in Plateau State? Now, within the foundation of everything that I've mentioned is a resource-based dispute between two communities that are essentially divided along ethnic and religious lines, that all of these elements that I've mentioned are exacerbating the competition between them. So I've had narratives suggesting that it is a land-grabbing exercise, but it's not as simple as that. It is complex. You have to lift all of these layers that I've mentioned, disaggregate them, and then before you come to the conclusion of what exactly happened. I've had a narrative suggesting that there were killings in some areas and that what we saw were reprisals. But all of that is not peculiar with this current cycle of violence in Plateau State. As far back as 2008 or even before then, we've seen cycles like that. Why haven't we found a way to stop it? Recommendations have been made. Like I said, there were commissions, committees of inquiry that have presented beautiful reports. And then international non-governmental organizations have also looked into it. They've presented beautiful reports. So we know what we need to do. And we know the politicians accountable for not doing the things that they are supposed to do to bring this violence to an end.
Let me come to you, Mr. Ifeong. So, what do you think is the implication of these repeated attacks, especially on the plateau, like we've seen? What do you see?
I think the way it is going, citizens are being pushed, the victims are being pushed to a point where people may begin to resort to self-help. Because, I mean, you listen to what the governor said, basically asking people to defend themselves. I don't understand why we should have a conversation in 2024. I mean, we're about to enter 2024. I don't understand why I should be having a conversation in the 21st century on whether cattle should be allowed to move around freely. Because this conversation, this suggestion that these are headers from Niger, from wherever, from Chad or whatever, that, oh, they need to feed their cattle, they need to be allowed to move their cattle. Why should the life of one Nigerian be killed because of a cattle? It doesn't make sense. It has never made sense to me. So those who say that this is land grabbing cannot be dismissed, because there have been cases, there have been testimonies over time that when these invaders, these terrorists, invade communities, they will displace the indigenous people of those communities. They will now inhabit their lands, and they will even rename those communities. These issues have never been decisively tackled. And when you heard General Danjuma say that the armed forces is not neutral, you begin to now ask, is this really the case? Because if the armed forces is neutral, we will not be having these attacks. So what I am saying is that we are getting to a point where there is now complete loss of faith in the government. The territorial integrity of the Nigerian state has been challenged. And people can say, oh, Nigeria is indivisible, Nigeria is indissoluble, Nigeria cannot be divided. But in reality, in practical terms, we are seeing the territory of our country being conquered by terrorists. We are hearing excuses that, oh, because of the terrain, that, oh, these areas cannot be policed, these areas, the security agencies cannot easily access it. So the government has basically ceded parts of our territory, of our country, to terrorists. That is what has happened. Because what other explanation do you have for it? And how come that these attackers will invade these communities? At the end of the day, they return to where they came from. Nobody stops them. And were there no checkpoints? How were they able to live? Where did they return to? And to compound the matter, we even see reports where before attack take place, these terrorists will even be so emboldened to send notice, pre-attack notice that we are coming. This attack that just happened on the eve of Christmas, there was a notice that they were going to come, I think, on the 29th. And truly they went, even though they said people were not killed. So what does this tell you? it tells you that these people, these terrorists, have some level of protection of the state. If the state is not protecting them, or if the state is not so weak to the point of bringing them to justice, they will not continue. But if truly these are foreigners, what does that speak about us as a country? That you have foreigners invade our country, kill Nigerians, and return to where they came from. Nobody stops them. And then you have people being buried, given mass burial, and the president has not even gone to condole with them. I'm seeing pictures of him with his family smiling. I don't have anything against his family celebrating, but why make a public show of it? At a time that almost 200 of your citizens are being buried. The president of a country has not gone to visit the victims. It's only the vice president who went. I'm not even sure if he interacted with the victim directly. But people are tired of condolences. People are tired of excuses. Nigerians want to see solution. President Tinubu must decide today that this attack must not happen again. Oh. And if it happens again, this is what the consequence will be. In terms of resignation, in terms of firing people. And if Tinubu comes to the conclusion that Nigerians, I promise you renewed hope, but unfortunately, I don't have any hope to give you. I cannot safeguard your life. The honorable thing is to resign. You cannot have citizens being slaughtered, and there is no consequence.
All right, let me come to you, Dr. Kabir. Is there a place in all of this for an empathy in terms of leadership? Because as is mentioned, because that was my next question, I know that to the best of my knowledge, I stand to be corrected, what happened in Tudunbiri in the Aero bombing, I don't think the president went there. I know the vice president also went there, and this incident did happen. So where is the place of leadership and empathy? If the president shows up in some of these places and these crime scenes, do you think it's going to make a lot of difference for the citizens who, who are looking up to him as their leader?
Okay, before then, I would quickly like to correct or rather advise my co-discussant. I mean, obviously he's from a legal background. Security is not as simple as he's painting it. I mentioned earlier on that this matter is complex. We should avoid the simplistic explanation that seems to be out there in the open media. He needs to study this more. I live in Plateau State. It's what I do. It's my expertise, and I can tell you it's a complex matter. It's not as simple as the narrative is. So he should take a step back and study the situation and understand what is happening on the Plateau. The deaths are condemnable, but we need to know who is behind those deaths. The simple explanation that we're hearing, I can bet you it's a little bit more complex than that. Now, with regards to your question, yes, sympathy from our leaders go a long way in restoring confidence, in building hope. And I've looked closely at the renewed hope agenda of the president. One of the policy statements there is that the government intends to win the hearts and minds of the people. And I can tell you that there is no counter-terrorism, anti-banditry, or public security operation that is won without the support of the local population. Now, incidents like the one we're discussing almost completely depletes that public trust. And so what it does, it affects their ability to gather intelligence, their ability to generate intelligence from that local community. And so when leadership expresses sympathy, both physically and then emotionally, and seeks to restore the hope of the people by, giving out palliatives, assuring them that the perpetrators would be penalized, then you see the people responding. Now, we've seen an improvement from the previous government to where we are at the moment. And I can say this with all sense of responsibility. But what is more important is that accountability element. I know the president hasn't, but he sent his vice president. The vice president did go to the location. He condoled with the people who have been commended by the Plateau State government excessively.
Okay. So my apologies. We're totally out of time. That's why. But this is, as you said, this is an issue that is ongoing. We'll continue to ask the hard questions to ensure that people don't wake up dead. I will continue to say that, Inibe, just 10 seconds is what you have. I don't just want you to...
Let the governor of Plateau State and the other states affected apply for firearms from the IG. Allow vigilantes within those communities to be armed in a regulated way to protect themselves. Under the Firearms Act, Nigerians have the right to hold licensed firearms. I'm challenging the governor of Plateau State. If you are truly serious, write to the IG today, write to the president, and to give arms to communities that are affected, let the leaders of those communities rally youths, arm them with license of the government to protect themselves. That is the way out of this. And there is nothing complicated about protecting the life of citizens.
As long as it's within the law. As long as it's within the law. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Inibe Elfiong, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Also, Dr. Kabiru Adomo, security expert and CEO of Beacon Consult. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We always will come through to you whenever we need insights from you concerning these issues. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, we'll switch gears now from the issue of security to politics in Edo State. I'll be joined after the break by the contending forces in Edo politics, including some. We saw the viral video of an attack on certain people that are, loyal to a group of the Labor Party in Edo State. We're going to explore that conversation. I'll be joined again at some point by the former NBA president, Olumide Akpata, as well as other members of the Labour Party on the program. Join us again. Welcome back. The crisis in the Edo State Labour Party seems to be taking another dimension after some national leaders of the party were manhandled. In the video that went viral, the men suspected to be members of the Labour Party ahead challenging the victims for coming to their state. The visitors are reported in the state, had reported in the state ahead of the convention scheduled for Saturday, that's December the 30th. Meanwhile, the spokesperson of the Papa-led group of the Labour Party, Mr. Bayomi Arabambe, has accused the Edo State Publicity Secretary, Mr. Sam Oropa, of spearheading the attack. Mr. Arabambe alleges that the leaders were beaten up and manhandled when they went to prepare for Saturday's event. He also accused Mr. Olumide Akpata, who is a contender in the race for the ticket, of not calling his men to order. Mr. Arabambe also promised to report the attack on the group leaders to the security agents. So that's what we're going to be discussing right now on the program. Well, those were the videos you saw, some of the things that happened in Edo State, which is the basis for our conversation. It's going to be two parts, a conversation as far as Edo Labour Party issues are concerned. I'm being joined right here in our Lagos studio by the man I did mention his name in my intro, Mr. Bayomi Arabambe of the Labour Party. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
And thank you so much. Good evening, Nigeria Community of Citizens. Thank you for inviting me here.
Joining us via Zoom, the chairman of Edo Labour Party, Mr. Kelly Ogbaloy. Mr. Ogbaloy, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, I understand. I thought Mr. Kelly was standing by. Apparently, we couldn't get in. Let me start with you, Mr. Arabambe, on this particular issue. Tell us exactly because when we see viral videos, a lot of people will say different things. And so explain to us what exactly happened in those videos.
Well, thank you very much. We thank God today because probably we will have more killings with the one that happened in Plateau State of recent. And today, we are somehow very shocked that we have two people who today will be calling themselves lawyers and who are supposed to know the law, but they deliberately choose to stand on it. I am making reference to the former NBA president, who I am highly disappointed in, and Julius Aburi. Though I know that one, he has never attended court session ever since when I know him, but he also called himself a lawyer. But I want the NBA to actually help us to look into these two characters about what happened today. Mr. Olumide Akpata is fully aware.
I would appreciate no disparaging anybody. They're not characters.
Okay,
they're gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Olumide Akpata, as a former NBA president, ought to know that where there is a restraining order of a court, it has to be respected. There have been plenty of authorities by the Supreme Court that when an order of a court is made, you don't have a choice other than for you to obey that order, that judgment.
Which order are you talking about here?
There is a judgment of a FCTI court by Justice Manzu against Aburi and 3 others, restraining them from parading themselves as national officers.
Okay, let's get this in proper context before we start shooting too fast. There were two issues concerning Abure.
Yes.
I'm going to come to the issue of you mentioning Akpata because it's an allegation of his involvement or in anything. So let's take it in steps. There were two issues.
Yes.
First has to do with the suspension from the ward, which has been decided by the court. I think to the best of my knowledge, it got to even Court of Appeal and setting aside that particular decision because it was when he was removed from the ward that Lamidi Apapa came to take over, saying that there shouldn't be any vacuum.
No, that was not why we came.
No, hold on.
Okay.
The premise of Lamidi Apapa taking over.
No, that was not because of the suspension.
What was the premise of the suspension? So because there are two cases,
the
issue of the ward and the issue of forgery of documents.
No, we were not involved in that.
Okay, which one?
The forgery was what we reported to the police. And how do we come about that? Some of our candidate names were published by INEC. They've done their first publication. During the last publication, their names were removed. We went to INEC. They now gave us the affidavit in respect of those constituencies, governor, rep, and senate. It was that affidavit that we now took to the court in line with Evidence Act. The court replied that these were forged documents. We now reported to the police. It was the manager now, DIG Kokumo. He did an excellent job. The IG now was AIG operation then. We reported the matter and a forensic audit was done and they found that Abure actually forged those documents. It was
who did the forensic?
The police.
Okay.
With what the court wrote back to us, then we are cleared. Then we now approach the court because we know that from the evidence we are not protected because you alleges must prove. Now we have alleged forgery and the court are written back to us that this document presented by Abure to change those names, they did not emanate from that court. And let me tell you what he did. He forged the signature of that judge. He presented his own TSC account and also the commissioner for oath. They were what he presented in line with substitution rule of the Electoral Act to the INEC that, this person has withdrawn and he has gone to court to do, affidavit of substitution. They were what we now took to court and the court restrained him from parading himself pending determination of that matter before them.
Has that matter been determined?
No, he's in the Court of Appeal. So when he was restrained, it is normal, not like in Ondo State, when somebody is incapacitated, whether by reason of death or sickness.
If I understand, you got this order when in the year?
April.
Until now, it's not been determined?
Yes, it's not been determined. It's not a pre-election matter. When you have issue during election matter, normally court attend to most election matters. So that was why we now did what we call emergency NWC meeting. It was at that point Apapa came in because that was the most senior deputy. And let me tell you how he also came in. When we lost our national chairman in 2021, Alhaji Salam, he was the national secretary then. I seated there, moved his motion for ascension into national chairman in Benin, Edo State, and the national secretary then...
So because we don't have the luxury of time, so what you're saying now, the premise of the Apapa group still moving on with the claim over the leadership of the party is because there is a court order.
Of course, that has not been vacated.
That has not been vacated, stopping Abure from parading himself.
That's one step.
Which is separate from the Court of Appeal judgment that favored Abure.
Of course, that we are not a party. He himself and some ward executive.
All right.
You see, they have tested this matter in the Federal Court during the primaries of Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa. Their matter was dismissed because the judge of the Federal Court said, a man had been restrained.
But how come? Anyway, let me bring in Mr. Olumide Akpata, who is an aspirant in the Edo governorship election. Mr. Olumide Akpata is also a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Mr. Akpata, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Just I can't see you yet. I hope I see you in a moment. So, okay, fantastic. So I'm sure you've listened to Mr. Abayomi Arabambi. Two issues is raised so far. One is the allegation against you that you're not calling the people in Edo State to order, by implication, trying to say maybe your group was responsible for the attack on the people that we saw in that video. Second is this issue about the decision of the court or whether or not the Abure-led faction or led group is still in charge of the Labour Party. But he's saying that has nothing to do with the suspension from the ward. This has to do with forgery documents that they got the police involved and they got an order of court which said they should maintain status quo. So I want your take on this particular two issues that he's raised so far.
Thank you for the opportunity to chime in. I'm just stunned. You know, I'm actually shocked at how easy it is for people to just make things up and then carry on as if this fiction that they have produced is actually reality. I listened to Channels TV today, and I heard Kayode Okike-Olu on Politics Today, Lunchtime Politics, refer to this same assertion, and I really didn't want to believe it until I've listened again now to Mr. Arabambi, and he has repeated it, that he is disappointed at me, and you have also said that he mentions that I have refused to call my so-called men to order. I'm but one of probably 30 aspirants seeking the Labour Party ticket in Edo State. The disputes in the Labour Party predates my entry into that party. So I fail to understand why I'm being singled out by Mr. Arabambi and his co-travelers. There's really something wrong here, and I think we must get to the bottom of it. And I think he's maligning me. He has even asked that my association, the NBA, looks into my conduct. And I'm actually quite shocked at, that he would have the gall to mention that on national television. What conduct are we talking about? I'm one of 30 aspirants. I hope you know the genesis of what. I'm actually not even in Benin as we speak. I'm on break like everybody else. And the first thing we saw yesterday was the report that Labour Party has asked Akpata not to present himself as a candidate of the, or as an aspirant in the Labour Party because he is a mole of Governor Obaseki. My friends and supporters were shocked by this, and everybody reached out to me, and I was worried myself when I saw the headline. I reached out to the Labour Party in Edo State, and they said nothing of the sort. And when I opened the article, I realized that it was Mr. Arabambi and his colleagues who issued that statement. They actually issued a 20-paragraph document that purported to detail what their plans are for elections in Edo State. And in paragraph 19, they actually singled me out for all the aspirants to say, don't show yourself, don't present yourself in Labour Party because you are a mole of Governor Obaseki. And they actually, Mr. Arabambi in the studio there with you, actually signed that document. And it is in the public domain. And I'm sitting here on my own, and I'm wondering what exactly is going on. And then he comes on national television to insinuate that whatever melee happened in Benin and the fight between two factions, everybody knows that these two groups have been locked in some kind of tussle, even before I decided to join the party.
Mr. Akpata, if I may, just a bit, why do you think he's just picking you out of the 30 Labour Party aspirant? Why do you think it is used, he's pointing out?
Look, my brother, my guess or your guess is as good as mine. I am actually in shock. I'm befuddled because I looked at the document. I read the guidelines, the purported guidelines or timetable or whatever it is they call it. And I looked at paragraph 19 and I wondered to myself, what exactly is going on here? Is this a case of giving a dog a bad name to hang it? What exactly is happening? What is Arabambi and his co-travelers, what exactly are they trying to achieve?
Okay, Mr. Akpata, let me come back to Mr. Arabambi.
Can I finish?
Just 30 seconds time.
No, please. I received on my phone today a text from somebody purporting to be from the Apapa faction, asking me to come and talk to them in view of my ambition in Edo State. Listen, I'm an officer of the law, the courts, an officer in the Temple of Justice. Look, basic law, basic elementary law tells you when a matter is sub judice, you don't get involved. These matters are before the courts of the land. We who are members of the Labour Party, particularly those of us who are aspiring to run for the office of governor on the Labour Party platform.
Okay, Mr. Akpata, I'm so sorry. I will have to butt in because of time. We don't have the luxury of time. Let me come to you. So taking from, he's worried that you're picking on him or your group is picking on him. So exactly why is that? And where does this lead the Labour Party as they go into the election? Looks like a divided house.
Well, thank you. Just like I said, he's aware, but he tried to dodge that question. The 20 buses he bought, the people he gave them to, as local government chairman or Abure faction, they were all there today. Imagine people that want to govern a state, you will hold a stone and be eating somebody's head, and yet these are the people he's paraded, these are the people he gave buses to. We know ourselves there. We are still going to report, you know. We are still going to write the farm person. We know all of them. You understand? These are the people he just donated buses to. 18 buses to. And here, he will now come and be telling you that he's not aware. He's aware, but our point is this. As a lawyer, as a former NBA president, he's aware that Supreme Court said, when an order of a court is made, it must be obeyed. You knew this man had been restrained, yet you took all your arsenal, you know, to him. But let me very open why we said for Governor Obaseki. We knew Abure right from inception. In the local government election, none of our candidates featured. They collected money, Edo State Commission collected money, they were not featured. But in the general election, I challenged Abure. I challenge Governor Obaseki to tell us every of the assembly candidates, he paid $2 million to them, they are not a member.
That's an allegation you need to substantiate. So
of course, I said.
No.
I was part of the meeting.
Hold on, if you don't have.
No, I know, I was part of the meeting.
Hold on, if you don't have evidence,
I was part of the I was with Abure. I was Abure in Benin.
So those are strong allegations.
No, I said I was Abure in Benin when one of our presidential candidates came to pay $35 million. That was in 2022 to run against Peter Obi. It was on that night, you know, that we had a meeting, that I now got to know that, he had been on parole. Okay, you know, let me. It's a fact, I was there.
So, okay, still an allegation, so that we'll follow this through at the end of the day. Mr. Akpata, just a quick last word on this one. One of his, I've seen as one of his grievances is the fact that if you say the court is still deciding on which side this belongs, probably they are saying, by choosing to support a particular group, you've already taken side. I don't know whether you see what they are saying here.
First and foremost, I must tell you that this is utterly disgraceful, that on national television you allow an individual spew forth such allegations,
No, I'm just saying so that you know you have a right to reply and say yes. I'm just saying what he said.
That's why I'm replying now, right?
Okay.
I'm replying firstly to say this gentleman has insinuated that I am behind the attacks that took place in Benin.
Which is why you have to answer.
Which is what I want to answer, which is I have told you that it's ridiculous. And I wonder why he has singled me out. Then secondly, when you say taking sides, that is, nature abhors a vacuum. There cannot be any vacuum. As far as we know, I am one of 28 or so aspirants. The Labour Party in Edo State, its secretariat is in on Ogbelaka Street in Benin. That is where we have gone to express interest to participate in the governorship election. We cannot, because matters are in court, we will not go to the Labour Party secretariat that we know, that we see. If a court of the land comes today to declare that that party secretariat is illegal, of course we will not go there. Okay. We have to go to the secretariat that we know and that we see. That is one issue. I must tell you, we must refer to the issue that has been raised by Arabambi on your station this evening. It is ridiculous for him to say, I did not give... No, you need to hear me out.
No, because go ahead, just 10 seconds, we don't have time anymore.
I did not give buses to any individual. I gave buses to Labour Party in Edo State. So what is he talking about?
All right, Mr. Akpata, thank you so much. Look, the truth is that this conversation of the Labour Party in Edo State cannot be exhausted on this particular show. So we will have to visit this issue again so that everybody will ventilate their thoughts and speak their mind. Our job is just to provide a platform for this conversation to go on so that the audience will be able to make for themselves what is going on in the Labour Party. I must thank you, former NBA president and a governorship aspirant in the Edo State under the Labour Party, Mr. Olumide Akpata. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Also, Mr. Abayomi Arabambi of the Lamidi Apapa Group of the Labour Party. Thank you so much for coming to the program as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and, of course, your usual company. I did say this is the last edition of the program for the year. Thank you so much. On behalf of your regular host, Shenwo Kimbaloye, I am Jeffrey Uzama. Thank you for watching. Good night and God bless Nigeria. See you in January.